Today, we're not just going to talk about cybersecurity, we're going on a hunt. We're stepping right into the shoes of a digital detective, hot on the trail of an intruder, following the tiny, almost invisible, digital breadcrumbs they've left behind.
I mean, think about it. In this world of invisible data streams and silent attacks, a company's network is basically the modern crime scene. And a thief? Well, they could be anywhere in the world, leaving absolutely no fingerprints. Or, so they think.
Because here's the secret. Every single action, every packet of data sent, every login attempt, it leaves a trace. It creates this little whisper in all the noise. And a cybersecurity analyst, well, they're trained to hear those whispers, to piece together the entire story of a breach from these nearly invisible clues. So, picture this. Our analyst is staring at a screen, and there are literally billions of data points flowing across it. It's just a storm of information, a total chaos of digital traffic. But somewhere in all that noise, something is off. The first clue is just waiting to be found.
So how do they even begin to listen in on all this? Well, analysts basically have two main ways of doing it. There's active monitoring, which is kind of like a security guard doing their rounds, actively checking doors and asking systems, hey, you okay over there? And then there's passive monitoring, which is what our analyst is doing. That's more like sitting in the central security office, just watching all the camera feeds, listening to the normal hum of the network, and just waiting for a single sound that's out of key.
And then she spots it. It's faint, but it's regular. It's a pattern called beaconing. See, a compromised machine on the inside has been infected, and it's sending out this tiny periodic signal, like a hidden digital heartbeat, back to its masters, what we call a command and control server. It's basically letting them know, I'm alive, and I'm waiting for instructions.
And just look at this traffic. Now to you and me, it might just look like more data. But to our analyst, that repeating connection, from one source to the same destination with that almost perfect 10-second timing? Whoa, that stands out like a flare in the night. This is our first solid lead.
Okay, so that beaconing signal has led the analyst to its source, a single computer, let's say in the accounting department. The investigation now zooms way in, moving from this bird's-eye view of the whole network to the microscopic level of just one machine.
Using a tool like this resource monitor, the analyst remotely connects to the machine to check its vital signs. Is the processor working way too hard? Is something eating up a ton of memory? They're basically looking for the source of the infection, for the malicious process that's making that call home.
But here's the thing. After digging through all the running processes, she doesn't find a file named virus.exe. The malware isn't obvious at all. In fact, it's hiding, masquerading as a totally legitimate, even useful system tool. This is a classic sneaky attacker technique.
The source material we looked at warns that when you find a common command line tool, something like Netcat, which is sort of like a Swiss Army knife for networks, just running when it has no business being on, sending out that beacon, that is a huge red flag. A legitimate tool has been turned into a weapon. The system is compromised. It's been owned.
Okay, so we know a machine was compromised. We know they used a repurposed tool to do it, and we know exactly which workstation it was. But the crucial question now is, how? How in the world did the attacker get in the first place?
And more often than not, the answer isn't some brilliant, complex technical hack. It's social engineering. It's all about exploiting the human element, our curiosity, our sense of urgency, our trust. It's an attacker just tricking a person into opening the digital door for them. And the key takeaway here is pretty clear. Human error is often the weakest link in the entire security chain.
So, the analyst pulls the email logs for the user of the infected machine, and bingo, there it is, a phishing email. Now, this email header, it looks like a total mess of gibberish, right? But to an analyst, it's a treasure map. It shows the exact path the email took, proving it came from a malicious source and not the trusted sender it was pretending to be. One click. That's all it took. Case cracked.
All right, now that we've cracked the case, let's take a step back and look at the amazing tools that make this kind of digital detective work even possible. Because it's not just one program, it's a whole suite of sophisticated systems all working together.
Three of the most important tools here are the CM, EDR, and SOAR. So think of the CM as the central command center. It collects logs and alerts from absolutely everywhere. The EDR, well, that's like the security guard stationed on each individual computer watching for suspicious behavior right up close. And SOAR? That's the cool, high-tech automation that takes an alert from the CM and automatically tells the EDR what to do. Sort of like dispatching the guard to go lock a door, instantly.
Now, when an analyst really needs to dig deeper, they often look at two different types of data. Over on the left, we've got NetFlow data.
The source material has a great analogy for this. It's like a phone bill. It just tells you who called who, when, and for how long. It's perfect for getting that high-level overview. But on the right, that's a full packet capture. This is the actual recording of the phone call. It's a ton more data, but it has every single detail of the conversation, which is absolutely essential for doing detailed forensic analysis.
So the actual workflow often looks something like this. First, they capture the raw traffic with tools like Wireshark. Second, they have to sift through mountains of logs looking for that one needle in the haystack. Third, if they find a suspicious file, they use a technique called hashing, which creates a unique digital fingerprint to see if it's a known piece of malware. And finally, for a file that's totally new, they can run it in what's called a sandbox, a safe, isolated computer to see what it does without putting anything at risk.
You know, solving one crime is good, but preventing all future crimes, that's the real goal. And this brings us to probably the most important concept in all of defensive cybersecurity.
And that brings us to the whole idea of a baseline. A good detective doesn't just know what a crime looks like, they know what a peaceful neighborhood looks like. It's the same in cybersecurity. You have to spend time learning what normal is for your network. What time do people usually log in? What servers usually talk to each other? Once you know normal inside and out, the abnormal becomes incredibly, glaringly obvious.
And these right here are the kinds of abnormal patterns that analysts are always hunting for. Traffic going to a country where you do zero business, a simple program like Notepad suddenly trying to connect to the internet, gigabytes of data flowing out of the network at 3 a.m. These are those digital whispers that tell our detective that something is very, very wrong.
At the end of the day, every investigation, every deep dive into a phishing email, every analysis of a malicious file, it isn't just about closing one case. It's about learning the attacker's tactics. It's about using that knowledge to build higher walls, stronger locks, and smarter alarms to prevent the next attack from ever succeeding.
Which really leaves us with a final thought. This whole field is about finding that one strange signal in an entire ocean of routine noise. So think about your own digital world, your own network, whether it's at home or at work. What whispers are you missing?